Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Syosset Public Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am one of your hosts today, and I am Megan, one of the children's librarians here, and I have with me here...
Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm also a children's librarian.
And we are so happy to have
Honored.
Yes, we're so happy and honored to have Angela Dominguez, who is the children's author of the popular Stella Diaz series, amongst other children's books. And this is the latest book in this series, Stella Diaz Leaps to the Future. And it deals with Stella in 5th grade, and she's dealing with the prospect of entering middle school and with new transitions and friendship challenges and different aspects with dealing with her family life. So we are so thrilled to discuss this book today with Angela. So welcome to our show, and we're all ready to get started and discussing today this book with you. So
thank you. Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me.
First question, Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I've been a children's book author and illustrator for a while now. I started as an illustrator, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. And then a couple years later, I started writing. So I've been an author altogether for 12 years. And I started with picture books and then started writing longer format books. And I've kind of lived in a few different places. Like Stella, I was born in Mexico, but I grew up in Texas, and I went to art school in California and studied illustration, and then I moved out to New York, and now I live in Richmond, Virginia with my adorable dog, Petunia. She's a Boston Terrier Chihuahua mix, and with my boyfriend, Kyle, who was a science teacher for 11 years and now works in educational software.
That is so interesting because as our character Stella Diaz, so she is an immigrant from Mexico that is growing up in Texas, and she lives with her mom and her older brother, and she is in 5th grade, and she's very sensitive. And I feel like for sensitive kids out there like Stella Diaz, like she's just like, you can identify with her. And I really appreciated that, like you writing about this, this kind but very sensitive little girl who's trying to deal with like all these different aspects of 5th grade. And how did you come up with the inspiration for her character?
Well, originally, because I had really started only with picture books, I drew this girl with curly hair and a polka dot dress, and I really wanted to tell a story about her. And I started thinking it'd be really fun to set a story in an aquarium. And so I started trying to pitch it as a picture book, but it didn't exactly work because in the story, she was shy, but you didn't understand exactly why. And I was shy growing up, so I understood, but I think to most people, they didn't get it. So it didn't work with one publisher, but then I was drawn to still keep writing and working on this character because I realized in a lot of ways, I was writing a character that was similar to me growing up. And so I really infused a lot of my background and experiences throughout the series. It's changed somewhat because that first book was really based off of, feeling really nervous and shy about taking speech classes and feeling like I didn't quite fit in. And throughout the book, she's kind of grown to be she's grown to be her own person who is really passionate about the oceans and protecting them, and is full of all these different interests too, which can be kind of challenging sometimes. So it's just been a wonderful evolution from a simple drawing to then infusing myself to her now being her own person in a way.
Yeah, and she's such a strong character, and she's quiet, but she also advocates for what she believes in, which is so admirable, and it's just such a good lesson for kids.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like a lot of kids are they are starting to figure out what they like and what they're interested in. So when they're excited about something, they're really into something. And that was what I envisioned for Stella. and just kind of learning how to find her own voice through her interests as well.
And I like that part about how a part of that club, it's that marine biology club that she kind of
Yeah.
runs with a few friends, and like that part about the other kid that wanted to be part of the club, but she was like, oh, like about accepting new members. And I thought that that was great, that she was so kind and she accepted the other child into the club too, so that it was like it showed her kindness too, and like her strength. And it's like hard for changes, like any kind of change, especially in that type is difficult. And we're so used, like as a kid, you get used to seeing the same friends and different people. So any kind of changes, like it just presents new challenges. But I like that little part in the book too. It was so nice. And I loved all your illustrations. Like they were so beautiful, and they have so much emotion in them, just from like, the pictures throughout the story. Like I loved all the illustrations.
Thank you. Yeah, I think for kids, making a new friend can be a challenge in a way, or if you're so set up for something to be like a particular way, like this is the group, I don't want change. And there's some apprehension from Stella at the beginning, but then she realizes everything changes. So if we don't include new members, our club might not exist anymore. So I think it's like an important lesson for kids to learn, just like how the only constant in life is change.
Why fifth grade? Why did you choose her to be in fifth grade and not, I don't know, third grade or another elementary school age group?
Well, the first book takes place in third grade, and I've kind of kept aging her up. And this is the fifth and final book in the series. And I thought, I had kind of kept her in fourth grade for a while. And I thought it would be nice to have her kind of finish her elementary school journey. Just, I think once we get this past elementary school, it really starts being a different type of book. And I also wanted to say goodbye to this character in a way and see her graduate too.
Yeah, it was a perfect like transition book, because I think for a lot of kids, there's oftentimes they're split up like when they go to middle school. So that's such a big thing that happens for kids. And I don't know if it's like as often discussed in some of the literature that I've seen. So I like that you concentrated on that aspect. And I also like that you made the point, like just because we don't go to the same school as our friends doesn't mean we're going to end those friendships. Just because we're following the same path, that's not the correct path to follow. It's not like, it's just everyone has their own path too. So I think that that's a good message for kids to realize too, that we're all not going to be following exactly the same, way into the future, but like, with our own, our interests and our strengths, and, we find our way. And I think that that's a very powerful message.
What was the message that you wanted kids to take away from this book?
I guess in a big way, like the idea of it's okay that change happens. It can bring exciting things. It can bring things that are not positive, but it's just part of life. And also the idea that you're still figuring out who you are. So it's okay to be interested in many things, and it's okay if you don't have the same interests as some of your friends. Your true friends will always be there, and you can just grow and evolve together. So it's really just, I think, preparing kids for that next stage in life. And I think, like you mentioned, like that middle school can be so intimidating and scary when you're in elementary school. Like you're excited about it, but at the same time, it's like all of a sudden, it's like seems like way more pressure, and you're not in the safety of your bubble of elementary school. So I just wanted to kind of touch on like, it's okay to feel those feelings. It just, everyone goes through them, and what's awaiting you is exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely so true. And did you have a favorite character to write during the process of the story?
In a lot of ways, Stella is one of my favorites, just because there are so many similarities between myself and that character. Although sometimes I will say she's braver than I was at her age, which is always, fun. I also really do enjoy writing her brother, Nick, because there's a lot of similarities to my own brother, and I really feel like I nailed that voice down. And then I think Stanley as well is probably my third favorite because he seems to be, he plays a bigger role in a lot of the other books, but he's like the kid that seems like outgoing, makes friends really easily, doesn't have any hesitation. And as someone that might be a little bit more introverted or shy, I'm always like fascinated by those people that look like they just fit into any situation or do anything and don't seem to be like sweating it at all. So it was a lot of fun to write a character very different than myself.
Yeah, and the characters are so very different. And like Stella deals with like some friendship issues, and like she has a group assignment where she has to work with Jessica, she's had trouble with friendship in the past. And I thought that it was great that the teacher had like a group assignment to pair people together with not necessarily someone they would be the closest with in the class. And do you think like the modeling of the teachers, and you feel like the adults in the book definitely, I feel like they helped Stella in a lot of ways. Like, did you have a role model like when you were in school, or someone that inspired you to like pursue your path?
I think, in elementary school, I was always closer to my teachers. They were all really supportive, encouraged my interest in drawing and writing and reading. I think for me, those really strong, inspirational teachers for me didn't happen until high school when all of a sudden it's like I had an art teacher that was like, oh, you should go to art school, or an English teacher in my composition class that said, I think you have a real knack for writing. So teachers really can make such a big impact in children in the way that they perceive themselves, in the way they're able to see their own gifts and abilities.
I have a question. So we, as the readers, have learned so much from these characters, whether it be a lesson or a moral. Is there anything that you have learned in writing these characters?
Oh, definitely. I think Stella, that idea of acceptance and discovering your voice is something that has definitely been like eye-opening for myself. Because I just feel like being able to realize that you're stronger than you think you are has been like a continuing theme throughout these books. And it's something that I have to remind my own self sometimes. And with the third book, Stella Diaz Dreams Big, it's all about time management and learning to be okay with saying no to things sometimes, because kids are like adults can be really overscheduled. And that was me really writing about something that I saw with my own niece and nephew, but also I had been struggling with. So it has been very cathartic in a way to write this series, and definitely been learning things along the way. And not to mention just writing a longer format book. The first book started a picture book, and then it started growing organically into a longer book. And then I met an editor who said it needed to be 3 times the length. And so it was a lot of learning how to write a book that was longer with a full narrative and a full plot over the span of like almost 200 pages.
What's interesting is I feel like as I was reading this book, she awakened my inner child a little bit, that we're so used to the hustle and bustle of life. And, here you have Stella, and she kind of just reminds you that you can say no, you can slow down, you can stand up for yourself and speak your mind and advocate for yourself. And I think that's really great that the character provides all those strong things that really carry through in life.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important because I think it's the kind of things that, I would have loved to have heard when I was growing up. And the idea that you belong, even if you feel like you're maybe caught between a different culture, or you feel like you get nervous about speaking because of the speech classes. So just reassuring so many kids that struggle with all of those, that they have, so much strength, and they're, perfect the way they are, and they just need to embrace who they are as well.
So powerful and important. And when you're writing this story, do you come up with the illustrations first, or do you write first? What is that process like of combining the two art forms?
So with this, like with a picture book, it's a little different. I would maybe doing thumbnails where I was trying to write. But with this, I really do start with the story first. And then maybe while I'm writing, like I do an outline and then I do a really rough draft that like is so, hard to write. And then I start revising it. But probably around the time I start revising it, I start making notes for myself. What do I want to illustrate? What would be fun personally for me to draw, but I also think would bring more to the story by having it illustrated.
That's so cool. Yeah, because I think Stella is such a great character, and the other characters in the book are great too. Would you ever consider writing like a spin-off of any of the other characters in the story and focusing more on them?
Yeah, so I actually am working on a spinoff. So in the fifth book, we meet Gabby. She's the girl that wants to join the Sea Musketeers. And she had a lot of personality to me as soon as I started writing about her because she's so jazzed and like is a mega fan, and she's not introverted, she's extroverted. And I thought, it'd be so fun to start this new series with this different character that's kind of in the same world but different. And so I'm working on kind of a hybrid book. It's part novel, part comic, because I just think that's such a beautiful medium, and I've always been really curious about graphic novels. So I'm working on the first one right now, and it's just been so much fun. It's a lot more drawing, but I've always been a huge fan of these type of books like Pie in the Sky, and it's just giving me an opportunity to try something new with a new character, but still get to sneak in Stella in there a little bit.
That's going to be so exciting. Like, I can't wait because your art is so beautiful. Like, you really convey so much emotion in the characters. Like, so I think the hybrid graphic novel type book, that's going to work great with your writing and illustration.
Thank you.
And do you have any other projects that I don't know if you could tell us a little bit about them besides the Gabby hybrid project that you have coming out soon?
Yeah, so I have kind of another new series. I illustrated and wrote a bilingual picture book called I'm Hungry, Tengo Hambre, and it has a dinosaur who's hungry and his little pal who's a little blue bird. And I just did this book. It came out, I believe, last year in 2022. And, I really enjoyed drawing these characters, and I talked to my publisher. So we decided to try to do a couple more. We've given them names, Lolo and Birdie. And so I have the second one that I finished. It will be coming out in November. And that one is called I'm Not Sleepy, or No Tengo Sueño. And so the dinosaur is basically kind of like a toddler, and the bluebird is kind of the more mature friend that's trying to coax him, either to figure out what he wants to eat in the I'm Hungry book, or with this book to try to get him to go to sleep. And it kind of also, it's very silly and fun, but it's also kind of showing like the steps that you need to do to get, kind of start winding down to go to sleep as well. And it's bilingual too. And then I'm working on the third one, and that will be coming out next year. And I'm really just in the early stages, but that one is going to be called I Want More, Quiero Más. And so he just basically wants more.
Oh, those sound like such exciting and like fun reads. That's great. And they're also like bilingual too. That's great to introduce language to children in that aspect. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you today about Stella and this final book in the series. When can we expect Stella Diaz Leaps to the Future to hit the shelves so people can come to the library? Yeah.
It is March 22nd, I believe. So just in a few more weeks, which will be awfully exciting. It's a little hard to say goodbye to this character, just because it's been such a journey. And I started this idea back in 2013 as a picture book, and it took a while for me to like turn it into what it was, and that came out in 2018. But it's been such a big adventure with this character, and it's going to be fun to go ahead.
How long did it take you to write each book?
So the first one took about 3 years, because it was like a year as a picture book, a year kind of like me just doing my own thing, trying to figure it out, and then finding an editor, and then a year with an editor. And then with like publication, it didn't come out like till 2 years later, or like a year and a half later. The other ones have really been much faster because I will say, like, I'm not always the best at getting something, but as soon as I learn how to do it, I can do it and repeat it. So like as soon as I got to the second book, I understood how to write a longer book faster. So that took me about a year, and the rest have taken about a year. I think the fifth one actually took me 8 months because they were really wanting to get this in to kind of make sure that like that age group could see the fifth book before they get a little bit too mature.
Amazing. It's awesome.
Well, they're certainly so popular. I wanted to read an earlier book in the series, and I found I couldn't even get a copy from our shelves, so they were all out. So I think you're going to have
Oh wow!
fans
off the
ready
shelves.
for the next book.
Yeah.
They're going to be. I could see the holds already. Like they're going to be waiting for this book, and it's great to see that the kids are enjoying such a great series with a good message too.
I love the cultural aspect of it too.
Yeah,
We really do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, Angela, it was such an honor to have you on our show here today. It was such a pleasure to speak with you today. And if we don't have any other questions, I think, Natalie, did you get to ask anything?
I think we covered all the questions. Yeah.
So thank you so much again. So we're going to end this chapter and close this chapter of Turn the Page, Syosset Public Library's podcast. And again, I'm Megan, one of the children's librarians here and one of your hosts. And I have here with me
Natalie. Hi.
and Angela. Thank you so much. We're so looking forward to your future books ahead, and we can't wait to see what exciting projects you have next. And we'll look forward to Stella Diaz Leaps to the Future on March 22nd.
Second.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.